These are about continuation of a glossary and about terms that are pertinent to sexuality to create no social suffering in communication that has as an outcome any sort of negative emotions or physical states, and then pursuit of resentment in sadness, or pursuit in resentment in hatred or anger, or pursuit of remediation in such, which is often not understood properly. We need to remember that anger as a underlying emotion has suffering that is done to that person who is being triggered in, for instance, offering something that is beneath her or unwanted to her or him, to remediate something that has been done to that person in expectation or assumption of social applause, approval, or in expectation of a giving that sense of a right to become an achievement. And that is called ignorance, and it is not non-remediable. Now I would like to describe some terms more commonly used toward men. One of them is voyeur, and another one is exhibitionist. Voyeurism means that a person pursues only appreciation from being seen in state of arousal. And key here to remember from my professional experience and expertise is that the source of it is to demonstrate determining that the other person is a unique, significant other, as described in prior video, in hopes of pursuit of serious relationship, an equivocal proof of being in sexual arousal, in expectation to that causing adoration of gender-specific characteristics, love and arousal in that female. And because of social visibility and prohibition of being naked, that is actually considered unwanted by the other person, who may or may not want to pursue that relationship because of stigmatization of that socially. To be able to determine if that person who actually came to present self in state of arousal and exhibited an arousal from as cause from gender specific characteristics of an opposite gender person is to, I would discuss same gender relationship later on, is to understand that this is an equivalent to declaration or proposal of marriage in public, and an equivalent to also having, for example, as a kissing in public, or a pursuit of sensual state of arousal that is in non-touching and in appropriateness of the given place. And so that is why we need to understand that if exposed to such two things, am I in state of arousal, exposed to a naked person, and is that arousal ascending towards pursuit of sexual act, because that's what it is for? And second, do I love that person the most out of all positive emotions to pursue a role of a lifelong partner and parent in that sexual act, that bodily functions change to facilitate in that arousal, like erection in a male, or a relaxation of reproductive organs in a female, and a sensation of pleasure to enable the same as in penetration, or not. So again, we use that method, the Hexa method, and we use also the method of the Drugless mind expansion and determination of suitors. And if the answer is, if we decided that this person simply is unable to go through social structures, because we are, for instance, non-stop locked in an apartment working, or that person non-stop is questioned as being a corresponding in sexuality, that this is a desperation, not an illness, to demonstrate that it is false, while the other person impedes, for instance, inviting to a house, and impedes contact of other in nature, unable to understand that love is not limited to energy or life in mind. And so again, the the question to answer is, am I in love? If that person was considered normal, and that was first stage to sexual act in love, pending the same state in the opposite gender person, and love for that person as being in extreme need, actually, to make that person, the other person, realize that this is how the other one loves and desires that person, and having children. And so in the determination of such, first starts with mind as described. So marker of most adoration in love and determination of goodness, which is often what fails in understanding of that person. In that is one, and second one is a determination of that being causing, in cause effect, arousal to pursue sexual act. So that can be at the beginning disguised as a in a relationship with person who is supposed to be the correct partner, dreaming or fantasizing as a source of superior arousal, or source of arousal, of that situation conductive to an orgasm, and that's being source of children. Then that person is pending the stigmatization or social acceptance and pursue of verification if that person also has instinct to save life, protect, and provide. And that doing so has that in done in proportion to self seeing that, which is what it actually solves that situation. The remediation for that is to actually take an action later on to verify seriousness of that person that is always proportional to own seriousness. So if that person is serious about that relationship and love, and wants to be married, and wants to pursue the lifelong relationship because is in love, appearing constantly, for instance, then that person actually is eligible for such a relationship, and this is simply an extreme form of a love declaration. Second term important to understand is also term deviant. I use the word deviant. Deviant, deviation, is a person who does more or less than a given environment, and that has sexual context. And deviation or deviant is pending approval or disapproval of others, a source of in own mind that person's worth and goodness and capacity to pursue a role of a father. The same is for a female. So basically we need to understand them, this source of pursuit of harm and pursuit of death, as sexually forcing unwanted or separating wanted. And second one, pursuit of items impeding a source relationship that leads to sex in mind non-blocked by disgust, anger, or fear for conception, including other persons, at expense of another person in whom in mind that relationship is actually non-impeded, and presenting that as dream, fiction, song, or art. That is then determined as faulty or not faulty. So in a female, if that is such sublimation, it has to start with love declaration for a specific person, and based on response of that man on a primal instinct pursuit and pursuit of well-being and bonding of that female determine if that stripped of a specific person's characteristics and becomes simply a pursuit of art, let's say music or science, or that continues to be a love declaration because that person is in some way impeded, inhibited, or harmed in social structures and requires remediation to pursue that person's well-being. If it is a woman, however, and that is a man, the opposite is actually true. The man is pursuing a relationship that is um, in many ways um, impeded by work requirements from the others and self-restraint to not to uh, offer to that person a sense of appreciation, so compliment on beauty, gender specific characteristics, etc., in fear if that timely, for instance, and place wise, that is not resulting in bonding because he works, for instance, while she is at home, that sense of self-esteem will end in appreciation and pursuit, instinctive one, basic instinct of her sexual and loving attention of others. That is the risk and often leads to that in proportion to ignoring a person to pursue interpreted as rejection in comparison to other persons, especially when it comes to harm result, physical, material, or other one, in that person, while the other one is passive and does not have basic instinct because of bonding of such nature and such occurrences at work. So restraining against will, loving someone, or esteeming more at work is source of resentment because that commitment is false, and pursuit then of goods of such for such relationships source of falling of those goods apart and satisfaction in donations, for instance, in pursuit of someone else versus single life that exists. And I've discussed it before. Pursuit of single life is not only motivated by work nor by sexual pursuits for men and women in a diverse age, but it is motivated by sense of achievement and sense of satisfaction in solitude, completeness as a human being. Described quite well also in laws such as human rights. We need to remember all of sexuality added to material will be exposed to a frank no. This is not the case when it is extended. For example, in case of provision of housing for all persons, the person does not provide that house at current moment that is being constructed for own wife, and he builds only for others. And when asked, asking for excessive money, why do you do it? And saying, honey, I do it because I want to have children one day, in resentment, and then posing in anger obstacles to any pleasantness and blocking such relationship from becoming in any way superior to the relationship at home, which impedes work and creates work that is not effective, that person actually will resent in anger and say, of course it is not about sex because I don't love you nor I want you, and whatever that is sexual, I still prefer the person that I've chosen and I'm building house. However, that is still a person who that other person pursues as if a pimp to delay and or not have children, resulting in, for instance, infertility. Infertility such as PCOS and many other things, use and abuse of drugs for pregnancy to endure pregnancy afterwards when bonding occurs during work circumstances in diverse situations because of care for one another that then does not occur at home. And the second theme, exhibitionist, is a person who exposes self as in state of sexual arousal to persons in public or the persons that are unknown to again declare the state of arousal to pursue children, and because of stigma is not subject of consideration.